Hey guys, Eddie here from Deline Property. In this video, I'm very excited to share why I am buying in the Perth property market right now. And I want to share a little bit of information about where I believe the Perth property market is at in what I call the time of the cycle, the time of growth. And I'm going to be explaining of how I kind of analyze these things. I've got the whiteboard here, so I'm going to show you, I've got a little bit there already, as you can probably see, but I'm going to be explaining the growth markets that Perth has had over the last 1, 2, 3 decades. This goes very similar hand in hand to other states and what other states throughout Australia do, such as Queensland, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Tasmania. You might notice some very common trends and common patterns in this video. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you. So let's jump into it. We've got the whiteboard here behind me, and as you can see, I've wrote down some different dates and time stamps, and I'm going to first explain the importance of these particular years. So we're starting from 2002, 2012, and then all the way to 2022. 20-year gap, that 20-year period, I want to talk to you about and explain the different times throughout that, what happened in the Perth market and also what happened in some other states, but mainly Perth, what we're going to be talking about today. A common thing that I've noticed by looking at properties and analyzing hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of properties throughout the Perth market over the last few years, and why I've been buying so much there, especially in the last 12 months. We bought hundreds of properties for clients. I bought many for myself. It's been literally 80% Perth in the last 6 to 12 months, especially. Prior to that, we were buying a lot in Brisbane. We still are buying a lot in Brisbane now, but I believe Perth is a really good market to get in because I believe it's in the time of the cycle where it's about to go through that growth cycle and basically explode. And it already is. In other videos, I'll show you examples of how properties have jumped up 10, 20% already within 6 months. As you can see, as an example, around 2002, above each timestamp, you've got a 5-year period. And a 5-year period, what I would ideally say that the market is going through a growth cycle. You've got, as an example, this period right here, same with the other ones, might be for about 3 to 5 years on average. Over the past 20, 30, 40 years, usually a growth cycle happens like this. So you can see it started off from this level, it's jumped up and would say it's doubled in value. It's gone up between 80 to 100%. You can see clearly that's not flat line. Like a flat line would be like that, if it's right angle, but it retracts a little bit. You go through a little bit of a dip and it comes back down, generally at the lowest point right before it starts to rejuvenate and go through the next cycle again. If anyone remembers, like that's where 2012 comes in, and it's the common pattern of the twos as an example. Anyone would know that if you've been looking at Perth the last 12 months, Perth has jumped up a lot in the last 12 months, which was 2022. Right now it's 2023, but we're still, only like right here in the cycle, I truly believe. In 2012, as an example, this was over a decade ago. What's that, 11 years ago. That 5-year period between 2012, it probably started anywhere between 2009, right? So the growth cycle here started around that 2008, let's say 2009, and then it probably finished, and it was the peak around 2014, 2015. So it was about that 5-year period. You probably remember back in 2014, the property market in Perth was extremely expensive back then. That was, people called it the mining boom in Perth. For all the different reasons, Perth went through a growth cycle between around that 2009 to 2014, and stuff literally doubled. Ironically, the market's come back down this way. You're buying properties now in 2022 and 2023 cheaper than what they were back in 2014. And what's interesting about this is that what's happened in the last 10 years? In the last 10 years, the rents have gone up in Perth, but the prices have still been pretty stagnant and have come down. So we're buying properties for, let's say, 360,000 in Perth right now, when previously in 2014, they were selling for like 440. So you're buying it cheaper than 10 years ago, and the rents back then when this property was 440K, it might have only been renting for, $380 a week. Now we're buying the same property at 360, and the rents have gone from 380 to $600 per week in certain areas. In Metro Perth, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, you could be between 20, 30 kilometers out. As little as like 2-3 kilometers out. We buy properties in Perth that are very close to the city as well. But you can see the common trend. The rents have gone up during that time, and the actual market has been in steady plateau. The market didn't do very well over the past 10 years. If you're someone that's actually been watching, and you probably might be thinking, well, you're buying after it's not, why you'd be buying in a market that has gone down the last 10 years. This same trend, believe it or not, happened in Queensland. And if you go back to videos that I was talking about to 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago, I drew similar things to this whiteboard that I was talking about in the Brisbane market. Brisbane, as an example, side note, was very flat between like 2008, that 5-year period. Prior to that, it went through a big growth cycle, and it finished around 2012 in Brisbane, and then it was flat literally till 2021, like 2020, and then it started to go through that massive growth phase, similar to what Perth is doing now. And in the last 2-3 years, anyone that knows Brisbane, now everyone's talking about it because it's already done the big growth cycle. So now people are finally, oh, Brisbane's gone up. What a surprise, right? So the key thing that I've done throughout my entire investing journey in career is trying to recognize these patterns, recognize the trends, and trying to figure out when is the best time to buy in the cycle, which is not after everything's gone up, which usually now everyone's talking about Brisbane. Now people still are talking about Brisbane, but it's already gone up. It's gone up a lot. You've still got room for growth there. Yes, absolutely. You've got the Olympics in another 8-9 years. You've got infrastructure, you've got population growth, you've got lack of supply, you've got a huge demand. Yes, but it's already gone up. You're not buying the bargains as much anymore. Whereas in Perth, it's still literally a true believe, like right here. You've got another 3, 4, 5 years, I believe, between now 2023. If you can see, that's probably messy, apologies. And the next 4 years to 2027. Perth, I personally believe, is going to jump up 40 to 50% at the very bare minimum. Wouldn't be surprised if it even goes up 60, 70%. Because that's exactly what the same thing that happened in Brisbane. And usually throughout market cycles, after the longest period of being flat and stagnant and having minimal growth, it always has happened over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and it goes through a growth cycle. And many other factors come into play: supply, demand, inflation, interest rates, everything. But this is just very basic, extremely basic, how I'm trying to break down and what you'd actually know of the cycles. So if you're looking in Perth right now, or if I show you a property, if you're a potential client, or if you look at properties in Perth and you're buying one right now for, let's say, 450,000 in Perth as an example, do not be surprised if you look back and let's say that same property, ironically, let's say it sold around 2010 or 2011 or 2012, you'd probably see, well, it sold back then for like 420, 10 years ago, and I'm buying it now for like 420, 450. The market wouldn't have moved, it like hasn't moved in the last decade, barely at all, throughout the Metro Perth kind of market. Houses, townhouses, units, all properties, you're basically buying it almost for the same price as it was in 2014. But the key indicator here is there's a lack of supply, there's massive demand, and the rents have gone up substantially. So the 450K houses, where 10 years ago they were renting for 350, 400, and now renting for like 550, 600 a week, and the yields are 7, 8, 9% momentarily. The moment that, it's already happening right now, but the moment that the market goes through the cycle, the yields won't be 7, 8, 9, 10%. They will start to deflate and they'll go to 4 or 5% and they'll be back to normal. And then you'll have to wait another 10 years for this to happen in Perth at least. You might have to wait 12 years, 15 years after that for it to happen. This is a little bit about the very basics about how I look at a property market cycle. So you might be thinking, how do you find out these dates, Eddie? Like if you're saying the market went up around that, early 2000s, 2012, 2014, and you believe it's saying it's about to go up now, or it already is going up right now. If you're buying in the Perth market, like 90% of stuff is under contract online right now. This is from going through thousands and thousands of transactions and noticing the common trends of how much property is sold back. If I'm looking at a property I'm trying to buy now, I notice it sold back, in 2012 for like 400,000. Prior to that, 10 years, it sold for like 200,000. And then noticing other ones that may have been between this and this period in the midpoint, which may not have moved at all. You can tell and you can analyze that and you can figure out which parts were actually flat during that time if you've seen hundreds and thousands of actual sales. But the problem is 99% of people do not look at it this way, and they don't go through that amount of transactions and look at that amount of property. So you would never figure this out if you're just trying to buy the random property here or there. I bought thousands and thousands of properties over the years for clients and myself, etc. It takes a lot of information to actually figure this out. It might sound basic, but there's a lot of information that goes through behind the scenes to actually, come to these kind of conclusions and, forecast what I believe is inevitable. Because especially in the Perth market, when you're picking up houses, we picked up one the other day, and right now it's July 2023. We picked up a house half an hour roughly to the city of Perth, 750 square meter corner block, 4-bedroom house, already rented, paid $380,000 for it. That land alone was worth like $350,000. The person that bought that picked up a house for about $30,000. To rebuild that same house, you'd be paying $350,000, $400,000 to build it. So to replace that property, you're paying $750,000, and they bought it for literally $382,000. This is the exact same thing that happened in Brisbane back in 2018, 2019. If you go back to those videos on YouTube, you'd see, younger version of myself, less wrinkles, showing people, hey, look at this property. It is $300,000, it's $280,000 back in 2019. But you'll see, I was showing people the same kind of properties, houses, units, townhouses, just basic stuff. The houses in Brisbane were $290,000, $215,000, $227,000. Those same properties today, people were calling me crazy to, buy those back in 2019. Now the same properties in 2023, they're $400,000. So they've doubled literally 3-year period. But to me, while we bought hundreds and thousands of those properties in Queensland and Brisbane back in 2018, 2019, it had nothing to do with the COVID market. It had nothing to do with, the pandemic or anything. Those properties were always going to go through a growth cycle because they had been suppressed for the past decade, and they were buying at the bottom of the market, which this has happened again and again over 30, 40, 50 years. It had nothing to do with the COVID market, which a lot of people think, well, it's just because of COVID happened. No, it might be a small contributing factor, but it's not the main reason why the Queensland market went up. Like everywhere went up. Hope this video helps. Thanks so much for watching.